Welcome to a very special ESL RPG. I'm David, your host. Sometimes you may know me as
Eric, the Ogre Paladin.
Sometimes you may know me as Bob when I like to hang out and play with my friends. Sometimes
You might know me as not Kubrick when I'm doing that game. Or, a lot of the other voices I do.
like Gary. Yes, Gary. For those of you on YouTube seeing me for the first time, you are probably very confused right now. And now that I've mentioned that, for those regular listeners to the podcast, you're probably very confused right now. That's because, podcast listeners, this is our first YouTube video. People on YouTube, we're normally a podcast. Come find us. Anyway, as you can see by my fancy jacket, I am a teacher. Please ignore everything else that suggests I'm not a teacher, like the band shirt, the bandana, and the jeans. Let's move on. As a teacher, I think there's something very important I can share with everybody here. But first, I must ask a question. Do you want to learn a language, like English, Japanese, or Spanish? This might be useful. Do you need to practice a language? Again, very useful. Are you teaching a language? See above. Are you a student? Are you a teacher teaching something other than languages? This might make the classroom more fun. Pay attention. And most importantly, are you a grandparent, parent, or friend who misses your grandchildren, children, or friends, or vice versa? Then this might be useful for you. And above all, if it's April 2020, this is very useful for you, because it's not like you're leaving home anyway. So, let's get some socialization done from home. Meanwhile, let's talk games. After all, that's my specialty, as many people who listen to the podcast already know. Now, for games, most people would think you need to play them in person. Not so. And before you ask, no, I am not talking about video games. I'm not talking about first-person shooters. I'm not talking about the Warframes or the Fortnites or the Minecrafts or anything like that. Although I play all those things. Anyway, I'm talking about role-playing games, or card games, or even board games or dice games. All very, very useful tools. Now, in future videos, we may discuss or we may show the details about these games, how you can play them, how you can run them, and how you can have fun with them. But first, let's talk about how to connect, because, well, as you can see here, all of my friends are in their homes, so I can't really connect to them right now. Let's see what we can do to fix that. First, let's go over the things you don't need. These are all the things we use when we make the podcast. Do you need fancy mics that make little heart-shaped recording patterns? No, you do not. In the box they go. Do you need fancy dice trays to make your dice rolling quiet? Well, some people like it loud. No. Do you need coasters? That depends. Do you like watermarks on your tables? Yes, use coasters. Do you need this boom arm for microphones? Definitely not. Do you need this piece of wood and foam rubber that's just jerry-rigged to make things work. Unless you have my table, I think you're okay. And if you have my table, please give it back. Fancy microphone thing? No. Long microphone cables? No. Do you need a soundboard? I would say a fancy soundboard, but we only tell her that when we want her to be nice. And she's not plugged in right now, so it's not like she's turned on. All those things you don't need. What do you need? For simple connection? This'll do. A phone. No, I do not recommend you call all your friends and run up your mobile bill. That would be crazy. No, if you've got a smartphone, you've got everything you need to connect with your friends. From your smartphone, you can go to Facebook. You can create a group of people who play these types of games. Find people in that group and set up an appointment to play some games. You can go to Skype and you can Skype with your friends. You can go to Discord and you can use Discord with your friends. You can use Zoom from your phone. You can use, it's actually shorter to list the number of things you can't use on your phone, because you can also use it for Doodle polls for better scheduling, for calendars for better scheduling, for dice if you don't have dice, for so many things. We'll get back to the phone. It's a good tool. What about these? Plastic figurines. This is in a special category. If you have it, it's great. If you don't worry. You don't need it. But if you have it, go ahead and use it. A way to connect. A phone. A computer. Even a broken down laptop that, quite frankly, probably needed to get replaced a long time ago. That you can use. If it's a laptop or a phone, you have a camera, you have a microphone built in. You're done. Stop. Don't worry anymore. If it's a desktop, well, you might need a microphone or a camera. In which case, a microphone works, a camera works. You can use a fancy camera. Well, kind of fancy camera. Or you can use cheap camera, kind of type that you can pick up for maybe 30 bucks, does 720p, and has a microphone built in. If you don't know what that means, Google it. Before I mentioned, plastic figurines can be useful, but you don't need them. What can you use instead of plastic figurines? Well, the most basic thing you can use is your imagination. Because if you explain things very well, you can play games and have people see in their head what's happening. You can use this. Simple poster board, cardboard, something like that, with pictures or letters, something so you know what or who different pieces are. If you want them to stand up, you can put a clip on the bottom. Very simple, just like that. If you don't have that fancy clam thingy, binder clips work wonderfully. very, very, very possible. It depends on the type of board game. Monopoly actually works very well this way. If you don't mind taking people's word when they roll the dice. You can have one board set up that everybody watches, and you move the pieces around while everybody else rolls the dice, and you draw the cards and show it to the camera. That works. If instead you've got something like Arkham Horror, oh dear God, no. Don't do that over the internet. That's just crazy talk. Definitely not. Let's get into other things then. If you still, for some crazy reason, want to do Arkham Horror over the internet, that just default here is going to be use a computer. We'll get back to that next episode. So, continuing with role-playing games, because they're actually the least piece intensive. Let's explain why. This is what's called a Chessex battle mat. It is very, very fancy. It is wet erase. It looks like old parchment with perfect 1-inch square grids all over it. You don't need it. It's amazing, but you don't need it. In fact, I think if you're a teacher, you don't even need these wet erase markers because you have, well, I think something like this. And even if you don't have a whiteboard and whiteboard markers, I think you have these. Pencils and paper. In fact, I think most people have pencils and paper. Very, very useful to have. Okay, but even if you don't have pencils and paper and a whiteboard, we'll get into that next time. Okay? So, that's actually, so far, pretty easy. Anything you have, you can set up using a webcam like that, so all your players can see. In fact, you can even pick up that webcam and move it around to show all your players in better detail what they're looking at. You might need dice. There are a lot of types of dice for different games. In fact, the best way to know what type of dice you need is to know the rules for those games. And oh God, there are so many different types of games out there. And they have massive amounts of rules. You don't need this stuff. I'll show you that in a bit, but you don't need those big books. You can find books online pretty easy. But let's stick with that for now a bit. As a player, these books help for knowing the rules. As a game master, someone running one of these role-playing games, these books help for knowing the rules. Very much. In fact, if you're the game master, I would still recommend having one of these books before you try making and running one of these games. But if you want to keep it really simple, there's a lot of one-page role-playing games out there where all the rules are on one page of paper. I'll show you some of those in a bit. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit more about dice. Do you need them? Well, no. I'm sorry. No. Dice are very useful, but you can play these games using dice on your smartphone. There are apps for your smartphone that use dice. Some of them can be very simple. Some of them can be very fancy. And there's plenty of dice programs on computer you can use. These, well, they're kind of useful. You don't need them, but they're kind of useful. The great thing about headphones, when you put them on, you hear the people you're talking to. They hear you through the microphone, and they don't hear them through the microphone. You don't need big, fancy headphones like these. Little earbuds like these will also work. Okay, let's go to the computer. All right, everyone. Now, you may have noticed a change in audio quality. Let me show you why. Here we are. This is why. Currently, we're not recording directly using my computer. Instead, you remember that old laptop from before? We are on a Discord server recording from the desktop to the laptop, and then the audio from the laptop is being routed back into the desktop. And that's how we're getting this recording. Although it might not be the best quality just straight through the video, so let's change back to the old style real quick. All right, we're back to recording with just the mic. That should be nice and much, much better. So let's take a look. What tools do you have that you can use? First off, a lot of Windows computers have Skype. You can use Skype. And if you don't have Skype, well, you can download Skype. Similarly, if you're on your smartphone, you can use and or download Skype. Most of them use a Microsoft account or a Google account, almost the same thing. So if you have a Microsoft or Google account, you can use that. If you don't, you can sign up with an email. Okay, next. You saw before with Discord. This one is really, really, really easy to use. All you need to do is sign up, again, using a Google account usually. Invite your friends to a server you make, which making a server is this easy. You click the plus, choose a server name like, let's just say card games, and click create. Then you have an option to invite your friends to that server, which you can do directly from here, or you can copy the link using the copy button and email it to your friends. The bonus of emailing is if your friends don't have Discord, it first directs them to download Discord. Now, if you don't have Discord yourself, you can go to the website for Discord up here, and you can download it. By the way, if you're listening to the podcast, there will be so many links in the description. And if you're watching the YouTube video, there will be so many links in the description. Okay, next. Let's talk about a chat tool that maybe doesn't count as free for everybody. Let's talk about Zoom. Now, if you're a teacher, there's a good chance right now you have a Zoom account through your school because you're using Zoom to teach your students. Now, that's great.
That's good, because otherwise, if you're trying to connect more than 2 people, Zoom is expensive. As in $20 per person per month. Expensive. So, for the most part, let's not include Zoom in the free tools, but again, if you're a teacher or a student, you already might have a Zoom account you can use. So use it. One of the great things about Zoom is you can choose something to share, whether it's one of your programs or your screen or a whiteboard, which a whiteboard can be quite useful for drawing out any kind of map you might need. And here is a happy, happy tree. Okay, let's get rid of that happy, happy tree. It looks kind of crazy. You see what I mean, though? Very easy to use, and another nice part, anybody using Zoom at the same time can also draw on the whiteboard. Be careful with that. Let's go to how to actually get everybody together. Well, there's a few options you have. Here's one, Facebook. First, try looking either for a specific type of game, like, let's say, Dungeons & Dragons 5e Beginners. Here are groups on Facebook for beginners for 5th edition who want to learn how to play the game, people who are looking to play the game, those kinds of things. Maybe Dungeons & Dragons isn't your thing. What if you want to play Call of Cthulhu? Call of Cthulhu RPG, boom, there you have it. Call of Cthulhu RPG, Call of Cthulhu Role-Playing Games and Players, Call of Cthulhu Tabletop RPG. There's a few out there, and that's a good way to connect, find people to play with, play games online. Now, Crazy 8 card game in Toyama. Well, there's not a page for that. That's okay. Click Create up on the right there. Create group. Name your group. Done. There we are. Crazy 8's in Toyama. There we are. Add people, whatever other people you want. Choose what type of group it is. Public, anyone can see it, or private, only members can see who's in the group and what they post. Visible, anyone can find this group. Hidden, only members can find this group. Okay, so if you are ultra paranoid about who you play your games with, you can set it to private so nobody can see who is in the group and what they are posting, and hidden, so only people in the group can see it. Or, if you want to try and get more and more people, public, anyone can see the group and what they post. Visible, anyone can find this group. Click there to pin it to your shortcuts on the left on your home page. Click Create. How about Twitter? Well, that's easy enough. A lot of your friends will already see your Twitter feed, so all you need to do is tweet something like, hey, who wants to play cards tonight? Hit tweet. Your friends can see that. How about next? If you're getting more specific, like you already know who you're playing with and you already know how you're going to play, well, you can use Doodle. On Doodle, you can create events. title your event. Let's stick with Crazy Eights. You can set for your location Skype, online, Google Hangouts, Zoom, anything like that. Oh yes, if you have a Google account, you can use Google Hangouts. Access that through your mail service. Okay, next. Set some type of schedule. There you go. Let's say Saturday afternoon. Now this you'd actually use for testing what schedule might be useful for some people. So you can choose several events, several times. Okay. If you're not comfortable clicking like that and or stretching, you can go by the month, click on the day, and fill in the times you want. Like maybe let's set that to starting at 2 o'clock even. Done. Or you can do it all by text. Option 1, option 2, option 3. Okay, continue. Now, this is the free version, so here's all the free choices. I would say this is a nice one to add. If you click twice, it gives a little yellow check with brackets to say, I can maybe do that day or that time, but it's not the best for me. Click next to finish. Now here you can invite participants. You can put in any email from any of your friends, or you can search by name for your friends. There we go. Okay. You can edit the message. Like, hey, what is a good time for playing cards? And you can even copy the link here by clicking share this link and copy, and you can now send that to your friends by Facebook, by Twitter, by any of the chat programs. And when that's all created, people can click and choose what days are good for them. You can choose, finally, what's the best day for everybody. And last, let's say you already have a day and time set up. Google Calendar, wonderful tool. All right, Crazy Eights. Now, when you've clicked to select your time and you've titled it, you can then add guests like my business. Okay. Or you can add locations or conferencing on Hangouts or what have you. Okay. When you have guests, it will email to your guests so they have a copy of that in their calendar. Now that is everything you need to connect. Join us next time when we talk about what tools you can use to actually play games on the internet with your friends.